the ability to get the thing financed. And most of our businesses, our buyers are looking for SBA financing. That is a key that we've seen here is that will it cash flow? Will it pass the smell test with the SBA? Beyond that, poor employee base, you have a bad lease or no lease. I always say to people, think of your lease as a balance sheet item. And that when you hear, I've got a month-to-month lease, well, then we don't know what the new rate's going to be. All of a sudden, that property manager goes, I'm going to jack it up.
In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Deal Board podcast. And boy, do we have a great episode for you today. Jessica, we were talking earlier. We've done a lot of sell side kind of information. And we thought, we really should talk more about the buy side as well. But it's such an interesting market out there, hot market. We wanted to talk about what makes things hot, what makes things not on the buy side, and it'll help sellers too. So this is a conversation for everybody about general market, what's going on out there.
Yeah. And one of the top questions we get asked a lot, Andy and I, is, well, what do you look for in a business? Like, if you were buying a business, what would you buy? And at first we were like, well, we could do a show on that. And Andy and I could just riff on what we would buy. But what we ended up deciding to do is bring some of our experts from the industry and some of our top brokers and franchise owners across the country on today and have a long panel discussion on what would we each look for in a business? Because I think the answer varies by different people, by different backgrounds, by different industries. So we're really excited to have a dynamic panel discussion today with some of the best in Transworld.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. Let's introduce everyone. I will start out by introducing one of my partners who's been with me for 20 years, Randy Bring. Randy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Andy. Hi, Jessica. I'm Randy Bring. As Andy mentioned, I'm with the company now in my 21st year. I'm based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
It's great to have you on the show, Randy. Thanks for being here. Next up, I'll introduce Gerald Brisson. He is our franchisee and Transworld owner in Houston, Texas.
Hey, thanks, Jessica. So yeah, my name's Gerald Brisson. I'm the franchise owner in Houston with Transworld Houston. My background, real quick, is I was the international country manager for in the oil industry with Texaco and Chevron for a period of time. I used to run downstream business operations. I was a global marketing director for Texaco, managing the Texaco brand. And the last part of my career before I decided to become a business broker and sell businesses, I used to manage the global procurement group for Texaco and then Chevron.
Excellent, Jerry. And Stephen Hanson, the president of our ad fund, live from California, where you just had a nice election. Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Andy, Jessica, great to see you. Stephen Hanson, San Diego North with Transworld. I leverage my experience as a divisional president in the medical device industry for a Fortune 100 company. I have an MBA and my credentials are a CBI and a CBB. And it's been great to have this experience as a business broker as a second career, and look forward to this panel discussion today.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Stephen. And last but not least, Scott Hislop. He's our franchise owner and partner up in Minnesota.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, Scott Hislop. So sixth generation farmer turned business broker about 6 years ago, and proud of the fact that we've assembled a team here in Minnesota that are passionate to help business owners buy and sell businesses. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, it's going to be a great discussion. So let's jump right in with question number one. What's driving the industry right now? What is driving competition for a listing? What makes a listing a hot listing? And I'll go back to Randy because he is the incoming chair of the IBBA, which he glossed over. So I will shoot that out that he's also a leader in the business brokerage industry. So Randy, what are you seeing out there right now?
Thanks, Andy. With all the craziness of the last 18 months, and I wish I could say it was different, what I've seen is a lot of the same. What I'm seeing is it's still a race to look at price to earnings. The fact is, the lower the price, the higher the earnings, at least as marketed, the more activity we get on the listing. And while there's so much information and quality value drivers that a buyer ultimately is going to want to look at, in this digital age, that is the initial sort that so many of our buyers are doing. It's just too easy to sit down and look at 500 or 1,000 businesses and sort them by price to earnings. And so when they see what looks like initially a good buy, that's where the initial activity is going to come in. So that I don't see as having changed much over the last couple of years.
It's a great point, Randy. And you make a great point. It's easy, right? It's a really easy analysis to do, and it's efficient for buyers. Jerry, what about you? What are you seeing out there?
Yep, I think the ratio of price to STE is important. I think our buyers are looking for potential. I think we're coming out of a period of time with COVID where there was a lot of uncertainty. I think right now there's more certainty. Buyers are less concerned about performance in 2020. They're more concerned about what performance in 2022 is going to look like. So the big seller for me is potential, and that's what we're preaching. That's what we're talking to our buyers about all the time. Is don't look at what the last year was like, even the last 2 years, but look at what 2022 is going to look like. And honestly, right now, there's a lot of businesses with potential out there, and that's what's driving the market here in Houston, I believe.
Great point. Well, let's flip to the north side of the country. Scott, what are you seeing out there?
Certainly agree with those guys as well. I think the other thing that people are looking for is solid cash flow without a lot of add backs. If we have heavy cash flow of over $500,000 or to $1 million, without a lot of add backs, that certainly adds value in the interest for the listing. And then the other couple things, recurring revenue is always a buzzword. If businesses have recurring revenue with repeat customers, it's popular. And then also everyone's concerned about an upcoming recession, right? So what are the industries that are recession proof are going to avoid any damage in a potential recession coming up?
All great points too, Scott. And a lot of, back to Randy's point, a lot of the same, right? But more emphasis on it. Stephen, what about out in California?
All great points from this panel. And one of the things we're seeing here is businesses that at this point now that are COVID proven. They've shown that 2020 is behind them. 2021, they're rocking and rolling, or at least getting well above 2020 and getting maybe back to where they were in 2019. Those businesses are hot. They're moving really fast. They're good. Then you add on the regular things that we all want, good books and records, and year-over-year growth, and showing that trickling down to the bottom line. Those are some things that we're seeing here in the San Diego market.
Yeah, it's all great points. And I mean, I come right back to Randy's original point outside of COVID, obviously, but these are a lot of things that we look for in businesses in any market, right? We're looking for solid price to earnings ratio, recurring revenue potential, recession proof or recession resistant, right? I don't think
good books and records.
Yeah.
And books and records have been improving over the years. I've talked about that before. With the advent of inventory systems, point of sale systems, we're not seeing people, brutalize their P&Ls anymore as much as they were. So Scott's point drives home as well.
Yeah. So let's flip it to the other side now. What is the number one thing that you think can prevent a sale from a buyer's side? And actually, we'll go opposite around this time. So Stephen, I'll start with you with that second question.
Great. Oh, I get to go first. Thanks so much. So, always the key one, right? Poor books and records are always going to make a mess for things. But the ability to get the thing financed. And most of our businesses, our buyers are looking for SBA financing. That is a key that we've seen here is that will it cash flow? Will it pass the smell test with the SBA? Beyond that, poor employee base, if you have a bad lease or no lease, I always say to people, think of your lease as a balance sheet item. And that, when you hear, I've got a month-to-month lease, well, then we don't know what the new rate's going to be. all of a sudden that property manager goes, I'm going to jack it up. And it just messes up all of your financials. So those are a few points that I see right now.
Yeah, great points. Books and records is always probably number one. But Scott, what else are you seeing out there people really hide from?
Well, I think any undisclosed issues or warts to the business, we always tell sellers, hey, give us all the negative stuff up front and let's tell the buyers all these things at the very beginning. They're way less intrusive at the beginning than they are at the end. So too many times sellers want to try to sweep things under the rug and maybe they won't notice. Everybody's always going to notice, right? So let's get those disclosures up front and out of the way to begin with.
Yeah, so the fall on the bomb before it goes off, right? If there's something that we have to disclose, do it right up in front because it causes red flags down the road. So great point, Scott. Jerry, what about you? What's your number one deal killer?
Well, I hate to say the same thing over and over again, but books and records are the key, and tax returns, and we recast all of our businesses, report sellers' discretionary earnings, but at the end of the day, it's up to the seller to prove out those adjustments, and those that can and that have the records to prove the adjustments are true and valid. Have a much better chance of getting deals done. But having accurate records and provable records are really important if you're going to get your business sold. There's no doubt about it. That's the number one deal killer for us if that's not the case.
Well, I know, Randy, we've seen a lot of other things that have killed deals over the years. So, what are some of the things that are killing deals these days?
Look, all my colleagues make great points, but in my years of experience, any one of those, any single individual issue can be overcome. We can either get seller financing to replace bank financing, we can reconstruct books and records, but my experience tells me that the number one thing that prevents a sale is the lack of credibility on the seller side, a lack of honesty, a seller that's disingenuous, a lack of a feeling that the seller is being straightforward. I like to use the expression that a book that's missing too many pages can't be checked out. And that to me ultimately is what undoes even the best deals, because everything else I think one by one you can overcome. But if the seller is not genuine and doesn't come across as an honest business person, very difficult for most buyers to buy that business.
Yeah, I agree with you, Randy. I agree with all these points. I mean, they're all really good points. There's a lot of kind of things that come into play that is really out of the buyer or seller's purview. Is sometimes they pick the wrong professionals to get involved in the deal as well. And so we have a really hard time. We just had a deal die this morning, and it really came down to one of the professionals in the deal was just the wrong professional, didn't know what they were doing in the process, and really killed the deal, just turned everybody off because time kills all deals, right, Jess?
Yeah. Time kills all deals. And the more hurdles you put in front of you, like the more time it takes. I love Randy's point too. One of the things that I think kills deals too is when there's not an alignment between the buyer and the seller. I talk a lot about how when you sell a business, it's a short-term marriage because there is going to be a transition period. And if you have like this cultural misalignment between how the previous seller ran the business and then how the new owner is going to run it, so it makes it very difficult to get a deal done, or even if it does get a deal done, challenges in the future for the new owner. So kind of tied to Randy's too is like, yeah, there's got to be that bonding, that trust and rapport, but there's got to be some type of an alignment to the two parties. But all really good points. We hear books and records a lot. So listeners out there, I know you've probably heard me and Andy say that phrase, I don't know how many times over the last 2 years, but here's from 4 other people that are reinforcing that concept too.
Yeah, it's really important, obviously. So, I love this next question because people ask me all the time about buying a business, and I've helped my own family members buy businesses. My brother-in-law, my brother from another mother, they've all bought businesses from me to get into business. It is the American dream to buy a business. And I think about when I came to Transworld, I was a business buyer and I was probably doing it all wrong. And I was certainly looking for things. Now, in hindsight, there's different things that I would do. But one of the things I love, and I'll go to Scott first because I love this, and I know Scott was in a long-term family business as well. I love businesses that have been around a long time because I think it's hard to change people's habits. And if something's been around for 20 years, it's kind of hard to kill. So I like businesses that have been around a long time. But what would you look for in a business? What's one thing you would look for?
Certainly in addition to that, I don't like businesses that are owner centric. So businesses that owners are doing, 60, 70, 80 hours a week where they're heavily involved in daily operations would not be very attractive, So a business where the owner shows up once a week and signs checks on Thursday and is golfing the rest of the time would be an ideal business. And also that have implemented the EOS type system or traction type system that is very focused. They understand their core values, understand the focus of the business and is going that direction and are constantly making improvement on the goals for the business.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, we've talked about EOS and traction on the podcast before, but just having some type of system and process in place. We'll jump around a little bit. So let's go to Randy next. Randy, what would you look for in buying a business today?
Well, I'll get maybe a little bit more philosophical on this one. I would tell you that if I were looking for a business, I would look for a business that today, despite its shortcomings, despite what it's doing wrong, is still successful. So to me, if I put it another way, I would pay for what the business is doing well, but I would specifically buy the business for what it's doing wrong, because the smart buyers know that's where the real money is. The real money is in buying a business that, despite its shortcomings, is doing well now. And that buyer comes in, they leverage their experiences, maybe in the corporate world or from another business. They drop that into this new business and they take what is already a successful business, they take it to a next level. And that's where a lot of buyers, and I know everybody on the panel has experience selling businesses where we see a buyer come in and they do all the right things and bam, they've got themselves a much better business.
Well, I know Randy has two buyers that have done just that in their business. I was talking to one of them yesterday, and they mentioned to me that they think they're going to do about 20 million this year in revenues. So these are two guys that, started from humble beginnings and have built a huge company through acquiring businesses. But they've got the formula down too. They look for quality as well. So Jerry, I'll go to you because I know you worked with a lot of small business owners in your previous career, and now at Houston, you're the number one brokerage there. So, what do you see? What would you look for in a business when people are buying it?
Yeah, this is a great question because my thought process has changed, I think, over the last few years, but especially coming through 2020 and COVID and seeing how well some buyers were doing. But anyway, I have three things that would interest me if I was looking for to buy a business, and some of them we've already talked about. But number one is obviously provable financials. So you want to buy a business where you can look at the financials and convince yourself that whatever numbers you're seeing are accurate. So it doesn't have to be, that doesn't mean it's profitable even, but just you have to have a confidence level that the financials that you're seeing are accurate. And then number two, for me would be a growth potential. And we saw a lot of buyers in 2020 that were looking for businesses that were not doing well because they knew the market was going to turn around. And the smart buyers were buying, at a discounted price in 2020. And those opportunities are still available now. But you want to buy a business. I always say you want to buy a business not so much for what it did last year, but for what it's going to do next year and the years ahead. So I'm looking for a business with growth potential. And we mentioned it earlier, but I personally don't want to buy a business where I'm going to be tied to the business myself. I'm going to look for a business where I can hire a general manager and manage the business at a high level and not be involved in the day-to-day. So one is provable financials, two is growth potential, and three is you want owner independence, not owner dependence.
All really good points. And also very thought out. Your three, you spread like you're ready to go buy a business right now. You got your 3 checklist points, Jerry.
I'm
So-
always looking, Jessica.
Always, right?
You know how it is, right? You
I'll
can't
send
be
you
a
something to
business
check out.
broker and not be checking your own listings, right?
I know, right? Steven, what about you? What would you look for to buy a business?
All the comments my colleagues made are all so good. I could probably echo all of them. And one of the things that I look for and would look for is a good, strong employee base. Have they been there a long time? Other gaps and holes? Has the seller been, not hiring positions to improve their bottom line, but those positions should have been filled so that the business can stand on its own with coming in. I don't have to work there, like Randy said, at 90 hours a week. I think that's probably one of the key things that I would look at as a buyer coming into a business.
Yeah, I like that too. And a lot of our buyers like that too. I'll kind of wrap up the question. I like Andy, have helped some family members buy businesses, my sister buy a business. But I think if I was buying a business today, that's not a business brokerage firm, I would really look at where I could inject my unique talents and abilities into the business. So kind of a spin on the growth potential. And I think it comes from knowing what you're really good at and what value you can add to a business, and then finding a business that lacks that. Like to Randy's point, a little bit of like, I'm really good at marketing and strategy and processes. And I don't need to find a business that would be perfect in processes and efficiency, because I know that's what I could add to it. And we've seen a lot of buyers that are very clear on what they're good at and what they're not, acquire some fantastic deals, scale them up, roll some other small businesses together and do very, very well over time.
Just to add on to what Randy said, I think one of the biggest opportunities we have today is employees or businesses with a lot of employees that are affecting value today. So, the shortage of staff is not going to be a permanent thing, guys. And it's a short-term issue that we have right now. It is affecting the value of a lot of businesses. And it takes a lot of courage to buy a business like that and knowing that you're short-staffed, but that is not going to be a permanent problem. And it's a great opportunity today.
Right.
Yeah, all great.
It sounds counterintuitive, but I've always believed that the focus should be not on the good, but on the bad, what the business is doing wrong.
I love that, Randy. I think that's a great point. And it's actually a great reframe, because we joke around a lot, right? When a buyer asks us, hey, do you have any businesses that are listed for sale that are owner absentee, that have recurring revenue and that are cash flow positive? We always joke around, well, if we had all those businesses, we buy them ourselves. But actually, listening to this panel, we wouldn't, because we know that's actually where the extreme competition is, right? So that upside potential that we all mentioned is just really interesting to me. That is a joke that we have in the brokerage world. But when we asked 6 professionals, that didn't come up. That specific, criteria that we get in our inboxes every day of the week, not one of us brought those up.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's usually the less experienced buyer who's looking for those things, to be honest. It's someone coming out of the corporate world who's just looking for that unicorn that probably doesn't exist. But if they did find it, I'm wondering if that's what they really would want, because if you look at it in terms of the stock market, where do you want to buy into the stock market? At the top of the market, or do you want to buy in, at a lower point where you have an upside potential?
All great points. I mean, all great points. And it's interesting. Yes, Jessica, when people say that to me, I said, listen, nothing's going to get an A on its report card across the board for a business. You can't look at a business and say, well, it's got recurring revenue, it's got great employees, it's got a great location, it's got a great lease, it's got increasing profits and revenues over the last 3 years. There's not one business that's going to have an A+ on its report card. And if you're looking for that, it is the unicorn. So it's a hot market. I mean, it's, buyers need to be aggressive in this marketplace. So what should sellers be thinking about at this point? Right, Jessica?
Yeah. Like, what advice would you guys have for sellers that are, maybe they're already in the market trying to sell, or they're considering, probably more so considering going into the market? What advice would you have for them? And why don't we start with you, Jerry?
Well, I'm finding that right now sellers are feeling a lot more confident about the market. Last year, we had sellers that were concerned about getting into the market because they thought buyers would try and take advantage of their situation. Right now, buyers are feeling more confident because of COVID is starting to be behind us, and the future is less uncertain, and buyers are feeling the same way. And so my view is that now really is a very good time to sell your business, because the confidence level is much higher than it was a year ago. And the valuations of businesses we're seeing are going up and have gone up. And so right now is an excellent time to get into the market for lots of different reasons. And so that's my sense.
Yeah, and I'll throw it to Randy again, which I went to first before, and you talked about price to earnings multiples last time. And I think one of the interesting things of being able to go on the internet and kind of figure that out quickly, I think one of the interesting things is that the delta between asking price and selling price has seemed to squeeze over the years, but I don't want to lay up to what you're going to say. But Randy, what would you tell sellers?
Well, I first of all will absolutely agree with you that good businesses, from their asking price, sellers are certainly getting more than they might have in the past. So that differential between ask and closing price has definitely closed. You know, the advice that I have for my sellers hasn't changed over 20 years, and I could sum it up in 4 words: think like a buyer. And many of our sellers are smart enough to know from the time that they start their business, sometimes from the time that they buy the business, start setting your business up as if it was going to be looked at by a buyer at some time down the road. Think about all those value drivers that my associates today have talked about and begin to work on every single one of those, from customer concentration to key employees not being stable, bad books and records, and begin to look at your business the way that a buyer would look at your business.
It's a great point. It's funny too, when you position that, it changes your thought process, right? If, the question, if you were buying your business, what would you think about this scenario? It's a great point. Stephen, what about you? What advice do you have for sellers in today's market?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about what Randy just said, and to sort of echo off or just jump on that is to start your planning in advance. Don't wait too long. And I often get the question, do you think it's the right time? Is it the right time to sell? And they're having a great year, and they're going like, yeah, but what about this or what about that? Is the market right? It's a great time to get in the market. And my general advice to them is, let's get going. And you've got good books and records. You're showing year-over-year growth. You're showing you've gotten through COVID. You've got an exciting business. So get all those value drivers that we've been talking about throughout this podcast. Get them in place. Get yourself presentable. So then again, kind of going back to Randy's thing of through the eyes of the buyer too. The other part is look at your business like you're going into a home maybe for the first time. And where are the cobwebs? Where's the dirty bathroom? Where's all the junk that's been sitting around there? Clean it out, get it staged a bit too, beautify it. Because, they've been walking in that business for like maybe 15 years and they don't see that pile of whatever on the side anymore. And I always remind them, they're going to see it. It's like eating, you see what you eat, and that helps you taste it better. So make your business look better too. Make it show better.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point, especially staging your business. We don't do that a lot, but we've actually had to talk to some sellers about the condition of even the bathrooms where, a buyer is going to be living there and running the business. And we actually had one deal die because the bathroom was so bad. So we had to clean it up before the next buyer came in. So Scott, have you seen things like that? What else?
No, I agree with everything that everyone said. I think in addition to that, what I always tell sellers is work harder this year than you ever have before. Put the pause button on the retirement button. You don't do that until we close, and stay with the business, stay focused on your KPIs, on your monthly P&Ls, and and work harder to get more customers this last year before you sell than you ever have before. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning in asset-heavy businesses, look at the assets and evaluate all the assets in the business. If there's real estate, if there's equipment that's not involved in the P&L in the last couple of years, get rid of it and don't have it as part of the sale, and declutter your balance sheet and just have the balance sheet represent things that are really important to your last couple of years P&L.
It's a really good point, Scott. What about you, Andy? What would your advice be to sellers right now?
Sell now. Because it really is an incredible, we talked about this in podcasts, what an incredible time it is to perhaps sell your business. And if you are a baby boomer, and I'm just on the bottom of the baby boomers or the year after, these people are in their 70s. They really need to think about it now. Money's cheap. The buyer market is incredible. I just had a meeting with a private equity group, and they're scrambling. He was talking about that private equity groups, and I don't want to say this as a whole, but are paying for businesses, and they know they're a dog business, but they want to close out their fund and they want to get all the money to work because they already know they have some winners and they'll be okay. So they're buying bad businesses, which is an incredible thought. But that's what the market's like right now.
Yeah, sell now.
What about you?
Mine, I think we're going to go back to a point you made earlier, is surround yourself with the right team and the right advisors. Because a lot of the things that you guys mentioned, if you have the right advisors around you, you'll be able to prep on the right ways, focus on the value drivers, plan ahead for retirement, things like that. And we've talked a lot about that on the podcast before, but having that right team of advisors can really make or break your deal. So that can be the right business broker, investment banker, the right attorney, the right wealth manager to help you plan for the money after you sell the business, but focusing on the team that you're going to use and that's going to get you through the sale. And speaking of team, we've had a great discussion. Yeah, good segue, right? Didn't have that planned. We've had a great discussion here, and we've got really some of the best brokers and brokerage owners across the country on this call and on this podcast today. So before we close out, I'd love if you guys could just go around, remind everybody where you're located and how they can get in touch with you, either email or phone. We'll also drop that information into the show notes in case listeners, you want to follow up with one of these professionals. So Jerry, go ahead.
Sure. Jerry Brisson, and I am the franchise owner in Houston with Transreal Business Advisors of Houston. And my phone number is 832-585-3765. And my email address is gbrisson@tworld.com.
Great. Throw it to Steve.
Great. It's been great to be here today. Stephen Hanson, San Diego North, out here in California. You can reach me at Hanson, Hanson, at tworld.com. But give me a call. I'd love to speak with you. 760-607-0642. 760-607-0642. I'm waiting for my phone to ring.
What about you, Randy?
Hi again, everybody. Thanks. This was a lot of fun, Jessica. Now, thanks for putting this together. I'm Randy Bring. I'm here in South Florida, but I cover the entire state. And probably the best way to reach me, just call my cell phone. It's an easy number, 561-809-1500. And I too will wait for the phone to ring.
I'm always jealous of that number. I'm like, how'd you get that number? Anyway, Scott, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Hey, appreciate it. Yeah, Scott Hislop in Minnesota. So my cell phone number is 507-340-4219. My email is shislop, SHIS as in Sam, LOP, @tworld.com.
I think it's pretty telling that these four professionals just gave out their cell phone numbers. I mean, that's what it takes to get deals done, everybody, is to have a good team, a good teammate. You heard all the advice today, and it's so valuable. And what you can hear is that there's so many things that go into these deals that you really need someone who knows what they're doing, someone who has resources. And everybody here on this call has the resource of the Transworld Network. There's another 600 plus of us in the network that have skills that we could all tap into at any time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great having all of you guys on the show today. We're very grateful for your time to spend with us and sharing your advice to both Andy and myself and all of the listeners of the Deal Board. So thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for another episode.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week. Sold.
Hey everybody, welcome back. And it is Deal of the Week. And we have a very special guest. We have Bill Kelly from Transworld Business Advisors of Richmond. And he is here to tell us about his latest deal. And it was a very nice deal, kind of just one of the great deals that we usually do. So Bill, tell us more about it.
Yeah, this was a terrific deal. It only took about 10 months from listing to close. And most of that was waiting on the closing. We actually had a contract signed in, I think, just under 90 days. Had a lot of people looking at it. This was a 40-year-old business, and it was a referral from one of my other clients. We helped sell his business, and he referred me to his lifelong friend who owned, it was a body shop. And it was a really good business. It was well run, and we had several buyers looking for it. The interesting thing about this was when we found the buyer, he wanted to pay cash for the business, and instead we introduced him to a bank that we could benefit from, a relationship that we had. And he didn't end up using that bank. Instead, he used his own bank and financed the deal that way and kept his capital. And the other thing that was interesting about it was during the closing, the seller and the buyer agreed to split our commission. So it was, I'd never seen that happen before, but it was part of their negotiation. And the seller actually walked away with an extra about $100,000 added to his take home.
Wow, it sounds like a great deal. So 40-year-old business. I love businesses that have been around for that long. And so obviously something very well entrenched in the community. So how much were they asking for the business?
So they're asking 2.9, and they got 2.6. They accepted 2.6, plus they made some money on the back end, splitting their commission with the seller. And like I say, there were several offers, and this one just was the best one, they thought, because there was no financing contingency of any kind.
Right. And the buyers, were they experienced auto body people?
Yes, it was a buyer from Northern Virginia who owned two other body shops. But this one was doing more business than his two combined, and it was a strategic sale for him. He wanted to acquire their management team to help him with his other two shops. So he was really thrilled to get this sale.
That sounds like a great deal. So
it was,
long time business. You got financing in place. You got to keep the cash to help not only his other businesses, but to expand this one. And he got we see that a lot, people buying businesses for the management team because it is a tight labor market. So I think we're going to see more of that.
And Rupesh always teaches us that sellers become buyers and buyers become sellers. And this was a great example of that, where one of my sellers gave me a referral to another seller. And now I'm working with this buyer on acquiring another body shop in the Virginia Beach area. There
you go. Help another business owner continue their expansion and increase their profits and entrepreneurialism. We love it. Bill, what's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody else wants to talk to you about buying and selling businesses?
Best way to call me is 804-519-3000 or bkelly@tworld.com.
That's easy. Thanks, Bill. Thanks. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Andy.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Everybody, welcome back. And it is listing of the week. And we have a very special guest, Rick Kittay from Transworld Business Advisors of Florida. And he's got a great deal, which we don't see a ton of here down here in Florida. We just don't have a large manufacturing base. But Rick has a great manufacturing business he's going to tell you about right now. So Rick, welcome. And why don't you tell us about the deal?
Thanks very much, Andy. Hi, everybody. My name is Rick Kittay, and I'm a Transworld broker, obviously. The business that I represent is a 52-year-old manufacturing business. It was started by the present owner's father in 1969. Sean, who now runs the business, took over the business in 1980. So this has been strictly in the family for 52 years, which is not something you see very often. What the business does, they service the garage door industry. They make key switches, mechanical disconnect units, push buttons. It's grown to include commercial key switches, remote controls, keyless entry, and garage door accessory products. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but it really entails the entire garage door industry. They only have one major competitor, and that's up north. Other than that, they're pretty much free to do business. They manufacture their products in China. They have a very good supply chain there. They've been dealing with the Chinese manufacturer for years and years, and evidently he's a real charm to deal with. The products are brought over here. She buys products a year ahead of time, so that alleviates the supply chain problems that we're hearing about all the time now. The products come here. They're assembled in their Palm Beach location. Very easy assembly. There's no licenses needed for that. It's something that can be taught within 3 or 4 days. So it's not hard to find employees to handle that. The business is being sold for $750,000. And there are 3 possible ways that this can be bought. The owner owns the property. It's a 4,000 square foot property in Boynton Beach. The business can be moved. It can go anywhere in the United States because they sell all over the world. It can be leased for $4,000 a month, or it can be bought for $750,000. So you've got a number of possibilities on how you want to go ahead and do this. The business has been pre-approved for SBA financing with all 3 scenarios in mind, meaning just the business and the property, either a 17-year mortgage or a 25-year-old mortgage, a 25-year-old mortgage.
Sounds great. I mean, it sounds like a really good deal. You must be getting a lot of action on it.
I've only had the listing up a little over 2 months. I've had 40 NDAs on it already, and probably 10 or 15 either video calls or conference calls. I've had a lot of large companies looking at it, individuals that are somewhat familiar with electronics, and just people looking to buy a really good business. And this business, I believe, will sell within a very short period of time. I have a number of people that I believe are going to be throwing offers at us, and I would suggest, if you have any interest in this, please get in touch with me. I have a CIM that I can send you. They have a wonderful website as well, with hundreds and hundreds of products on it. They don't do a lot of retail. 90% of their business is commercial, which is really the way to go.
Right.
As I said, they sell worldwide, and it's pretty much a turnkey operation, but it will need a new manager. Because the owner is, she's preparing to retire, but she will give plenty of training, all the training that's necessary for a new owner to come in.
Right. Sounds like a great deal. What's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody wants to learn more?
Okay, well, best way to get in touch with me is my cell phone, which is 954-401-4115. or you can email me at Rick, R-A-C-K, Kittay, K-I-T-T-A-Y, at tworld.com.
All right. Great stuff. Sounds like a great deal. Someone's going to get themselves a good business soon. Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. You have a good day. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.